I'm going to be a lot more critical next year, and it's because I do feel as though you need to progress in a rebuild. I can't just sit here like, well, they should give these young kids another year and another. How many years? I mean, you see too many teams that try to do this rebuild, but it seems like again they're perpetually just rebuilding. At some point, you have to look at it and say, okay, we need to start winning. I don't think, and my tweet yesterday said they needed to get into the playoffs and win a round. That may be a little too ambitious, but at the very least, they really should be making the playoffs next year. And the only way that I would really adjust my expectations of that playoff is if Gordon and JD like screw up royally this offseason with what they're gonna do as far as Strom, D'Angelo, Lundqvist, Fost. What are they doing? What is the lineup looking like, or their roster going to look like once the season starts? Because if for some reason they make some radical changes to the lineup, I'm going to have to redirect, my I don't want to say anger, but my expectations to maybe Gordon. Say, look, he's now on the hot seat. He got rid of some of these players that helped us get to where we were last year. So Quinn is going to have even a harder job this year, and that's more on Gordon. So I think also a lot of it will have to do with, well, what is Quinn going to be working with next year, as well. I don't want to just say that I'm not willing to adjust, my thought process on Quinn where, if he doesn't make the playoffs, I'm like, get rid of the guy. I think it does depend. And you mentioned it, injuries, maybe injuries pop up, or, we get a surprise trade, or again, some of these contracts don't work out or in the off season. So, I think this is a huge off season for this rebuild and what we're doing, because I think that they can make some big mistakes this offseason if they're giving long-term contracts to guys like Strom and D'Angelo. I have no problem bringing them back, and I've mentioned this a number of times, going to arbitration and getting that 1 year deal for Strom and maybe a 2 year deal for D'Angelo, and then going from there. But if you're getting into these long-term contracts, and we all know how they end, we're watching it in real time with Lundqvist and Stahl. These long-term contracts never end well.
Yeah.
Lundqvist is an all-time great Ranger, and we're like, can we buy him out now? Because these long-term contracts always end badly. Lundqvist, the end of Lundqvist's time with the Rangers should not be whether or not we should buy the guy out, and is he holding us back? I mean, that's the problem with these long-term
Boy, are we going
contracts.
to hate Panarin in a few years?
Seriously, but that could happen. I mean, most likely it will, because that's just what happens. These guys get older. you know, Panarin just had a Hart Trophy type season. He legitimately has a chance to win it. Um, you know, this could be the best we see him, and it's year one. You know, because his year was that amazing. Like to think that he could duplicate that. Do you know how hard it's going to be for him to duplicate this season next year? How hard it's going to be for Zibanejad to duplicate this next year? It is going to be hard, which is why you're going to need Kako to step up, Heedle to step up, Howden to step up, Lemieux to step up. We need these guys to take that next step to help the team win, because you can't just say, well, we'll just wait for Panarin, Zibanejad, and Kreider to take over like they did this year, because those guys were having they were all had career type years, and you can't have the expectation of, well, we're going to get that every year. So that's where Quinn needs to be getting more out of these young guys to take that next step to winning, because it can't just fall on these top guys. Strome had a career year. I mean, is he going to come back with that again if we do bring him back again? D'Angelo, you had a lot of guys who had career type years. So that's going to be on the coach to either continue that, have those guys continue with those type of seasons, or have these other guys step up